Okay, good morning, audience. You want to move forward? I'm here today to talk to you about wellness tourism opportunities in Dubai primarily. And the basis of my presentation is going to be some research that was done by the Global Wellness Institute. The Global Wellness Institute is an organization that came out of the Global Spa Summit 10 years ago, and they in 2012, 2013, they commissioned the Stanford Research Institute to try and evaluate the market of wellness tourism and to put a value on that. And they did produce a report. I have a few copies of the report for anybody that would like to receive the report at the end, and I have a few more copies in my office. It's worth about $800, and it's got global information on it. But before I start, wellness tourism, what is it? How do we know what that is? Well, it's actually not very new, believe it or not. If you go back 200 years ago, particularly in Europe, you can look at these famous hot springs. And it's probably the first case of wellness tourism, because the North Europeans would travel down to the Baltic countries and to the Central Europe and take part in these hot springs. And they would do it to relieve rheumatism and arthritis or any other symptom that the doctor prescribed. These were the heal-all wellness destinations of their time. But of course, you had to have a little bit of money to do that. And that meant that it was primarily geared towards the wealthy people. Perhaps that's a little bit like what wellness destinations are today. So what is wellness? Well, I think this chart will help to describe the difference between medical tourism, which is actually an oxymoron of a word, because tourism is actually defined as a person that travels to go to somewhere for pleasure. I'm not quite sure traveling to get a hip replacement would be classed as going somewhere for pleasure, but so medical tourism is a bit of an oxymoron, whereas wellness tourism, you do go there for pleasure. And if you look at some of the terminology used there between the medical paradigm and the wellness paradigm, you start to get a little bit of a difference between these two components. The top 5 countries for medical tourism today: Thailand, Singapore, and India, that are all in Asia. And then we have Mexico and Costa Rica on the western side. And that's primarily because they offer cheaper treatments with the same degree of skill and expertise. And that's why people will travel to get their medical treatments done. Another graph that perhaps helps to convey this difference between the medical and the wellness approach is this one. And I think, for me, I mentioned this yesterday, but the big difference is that medical, it's all prescribed and you are a patient. So you are told what to do. You are told about the experience you are going to have. Whereas in wellness, you are a guest and you are part of that decision-making process of what kind of experience you are going to receive. Does it really matter, and why study it? Well, the global tourism industry is about $3.2 trillion. The wellness industry is about $3.4 trillion. And if you put those together, which is what the Stanford Research did, you get the global wellness tourism. And what is that? Well, they measured all these different components. I'm not going to go into it, but you can see there's a lot of things like health and beauty, eco-adventure tours, personal growth, places where you went to go and get an enriching experience of one kind or another. And in order to do that, they needed to have a definition. So it's one thing to measure all of these things and say, do they fit in? But you needed to have some kind of a definition. And that definition came here. And perhaps wellness tourism, they decided, was all travel associated with the pursuit of maintaining or enhancing one's personal well-being. And that's quite a broad spectrum. And the other thing from this chart that's important to note is that there's a primary purpose, i.e. I am going to a health destination because I want to get spiritually enlightened, or I want to have a detox program. And there is a secondary purpose, where I'm actually going to go somewhere because I want to go to that destination because it's nice, but actually while I'm there, it's actually I'm going to benefit and I'm going to have a good time and I'm going to improve my quality of life. So a primary and a secondary purpose. So how big is it? Well, they came up with a figure which is being used all over the world today of $494 billion industry, the wellness tourism. $494 billion. That's quite a large sum, and it's only going to grow. And you can see it's broken down into those various different sectors, some of them more generic and a lot more specific. What does that mean to people and economies that use and develop wellness tourism? Well, on a global scale, this is the growth, and you can see there's about 14.5 million direct jobs worldwide that are related to wellness tourism, and this was in 2013. It has a $1 trillion impact on the economic impact, and it represents 14%, 15% probably now of all tourism spending. It's made up of various different sectors, and I think the ones that you kind of think of wellness tourism would be the spa industry. That's about 94 billion. That's not the biggest, but it's quite important. The thermal mineral hot springs industry. This has been around, as you saw those pictures, over 200 years. And there you've got a $50 billion industry. And of course, workplace wellness, which is just quite embryonic at the moment, but actually making a healthy environment for your employees, providing things like fitness centers, nutritious cafes, insurance programs and so on, is a $41 billion. And these all put together to make sure up that wellness 494 billion. In actual fact, it's 3 times the size of the pharmaceutical industry when you put it all up. And we all know how big the pharmaceutical industry is. And I'm going to flick through the next one a little bit quickly, but I wanted to touch back on that primary and secondary purpose of tourism. You can see today, still the large proportion of it is actually domestic, and it's actually secondary. So it is people that are traveling to somewhere within their own country, and the wellness part of it is a secondary benefit of it. And I think the easiest way, I'm from England, and what does everybody in England used to do before travel and everything began? They went to the seaside for the summer. Why? Because the seaside was a healthy environment, sun, sand and sea. Those were the big things that made you a healthy lifestyle. And so if you think of that, that's why domestic tourism, secondary, is the biggest sector. But yesterday we heard from Colliers, and they stated that actually the average spend of a wellness tourist was a premium over any other tourist. And that's borne out by these figures here today. In actual fact, the international wellness tourism, they're spending about 59% more than your average tourist. And that's not purely just on treatments. I've discovered in our hotels with Fairmont that if we provide wellness options, or we provide even just a spa, our guests stay an average of a day longer. They spend double on their food and beverage. And they're more likely to take our premium suites and have double occupancy. Why do they spend more on food and beverage? Well, it's quite I sort of puzzled on that, but it's quite logical. If I go to the spa for a 2-hour treatment or so, and I come out in La La Land because they've done such a great job on me, then I'm not really going to have to get dressed and go out of the hotel and find somewhere else to eat. I'm going to eat in the hotel. I'm either going to order room service because I'm in my dreamy state, or I may go to one of the restaurants. So I'm not going to travel. So that's why they spend more. So whilst we can measure the spending in the spa, actually hotels should be measuring the overall benefit to their hotel in all the other areas. So that's a little bit about it. Now I'm going to get into specifics and start to look at the impact for this region. Here's a global map, and you can see that still predominantly wellness or wellness-associated travel is the domain of Europe, although it looks like Russia on this map, it's actually really Europe and the United States. And then a third area being Asia, and then this part of the world, it's very, very small. But what is interesting is the growth. And that's where it becomes quite intriguing. And I think if we look at the fastest developing market, it is actually the Middle East and North Africa. That is where, whilst the figures are not very big in the number of trips, the actual number of trips is doubling, and it's likely to continue to double, and the expenditure has got the biggest area of growth. And actually, if you look at the top 10 wellness tourism markets for the Middle East and North Africa, so if we take that Middle East and North Africa and break it into that region, you will find that I'm very pleased to say the United Arab Emirates is the fastest growing area in wellness tourism. And that's all of the Emirates. I can't break that down into Dubai or wherever, but it's the whole area. And they've got 1.2 million, which is almost 25% of that 4 million. And today it's very intriguing because the graph I showed you, I said that the biggest spending market was the domestic market in secondary trips. Well, actually, in this part of the world, it's completely different. It is international wellness tourism. It's people coming here to Dubai for actually enjoying themselves, having a good time, but also getting into wellness. And that will continue. If we look at the next graph, you can see that it's the top in the areas of growth. It's 2 times faster than the global average, and the market's going to triple from $5.3 billion to $16.6 billion by the estimation of the Stanford Research Institute. And if those predictions continue, we can expect further expansion. The growth leaders, here again, UAE, #1 growth leader. And in top 10 annually for growth, UAE comes second, with only Israel just slightly ahead of it. These are 2013 figures, I hasten to add. And as a drop at generating jobs, well, direct jobs in the region, 200,000 jobs created with an economic impact of $13.4 billion. That is the figures. I'm now going to get into what I think that means for this region. So that's the evidence. And actually, Stanford Research Institute are commissioned to update this year. So we will have figures for 2016 that will come out for the future. But the wellness tourism market is going to be a valuable market. And the Global Wellness Institute is modeled on the World Economic Forum. That's how we created our model for what we should be doing. We're a think tank for everything to do with wellness. And one of my colleagues produced this graph of who should own that area, who should deal with it. And so government have ministries of health, and they have a ministry of tourism. Medical spas seem to oscillate between the two, because you have to have a medical license, but you also are inviting people to come in for your tourism. And under wellness tourism, they had spa, mineral, beauty and fitness. That's sort of the global look at it. So I thought, okay, let's have a look at Dubai. What would be the kind of situation in Dubai? Well, this is how I kind of put it, because we have a Minister of Happiness here. And if you look at what's happening worldwide, more and more indexes are starting to evaluate happiness or well-being as a measure of how content the country is. So whilst it was always measured in GDP, and actually if you look at young people today, I have 2 teenage daughters and something, they're not as materialistic as they used to be. It's more a sharing economy. So happiness, and actually the other big part we have in Dubai now is the Ministry of Tolerance. So you put those two together, this is the perfect climate for wellness tourism. And I kind of said, okay, well, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism have got to exist. The Ministry of Happiness becomes that kind of bridge that becomes the ability to look after all these different areas, from medical tourism out on that end of the scale to your ultimate destination retreat here in Dubai. And I don't believe Dubai has got a true destination retreat today. And of course it covers hotel wellness, it covers your beauty clinics and anything else within that broad range. And I think with the appointment of our minister, I can see this happening and eventually making Dubai a wellness city. And this slide shows the level of research through the Global Wellness Institute that we have available. And as I said, I have a report here to be able to show you, or to give to some of you that probably the first 10 that come up and claim it. The rest of you, I've got some in my office. I do believe, actually, Dubai can go one step further. It can go beyond wellness tourism. That's a great start. I believe Dubai is absolutely perfectly positioned to become the true first wellness city of the world. I had lunch last Friday. I live in Dubai. I had lunch last Friday out at JBR along the beach there at Seven Sands, which is an Emirati food restaurant. And I sat on the balcony and I looked out and I was thinking about this presentation. You look out there, I don't know how many of you people, the domestic opportunity for wellness in Dubai is immense. We have a rubberized running track along there, you have fitness parks along there, you have different kinds of seating, you have grass, you have sand. We look out there, is a melting pot of every nationality and every person in the world, every age group, sitting there on a Friday, enjoying themselves in a climate that makes them active, even if that activity is just walking along the beach and sitting down. It's making them active. They've got healthy food options, and they've got cultural. An Emirati restaurant creating Emirati food. I mean, that's perfect. That is a wellness community at large. And Dubai doesn't just do that at JBR. Dubai is doing that in all of the wellness communities. They are creating communities here in Dubai that encourage people to engage, to mix, and to actually take part in wellness. We have that. Dubai has medical tourism. We have Dubai Health City, and we have a growing medical tourism here. So they have that part of it. We have some of the best spas. I'm a judge of the world's best spas. I get the luxury of having to travel to all these places and try their treatments. Dubai has some of the best spas I've ever seen. They're fantastically designed and they're operated and innovative. Yesterday we heard from Jumeirah Group from Talise what they're doing to expand that beyond spa into wellness. With Fairmont, one of my great jobs that I've got to do is to say, what does that mean for our hotel groups? It's not just going to the spa or the fitness, it's how we design the rooms so that when you walk into our hotel, you come out feeling more healthy than you went in. Why? Simply because you went in there and we had the right environment, we had the right lighting, we had the right air conditioning that made you feel more healthy. If Dubai gets Wellness Village, which we heard about, that's going to put another area of wellness into it. All it needs, it's got all those ingredients, what it needs is the right chef to put all of those bits together and actually market and create Dubai as the first wellness city of the world, a true wellness city. And on that note, thank you very much. I have some time for some questions and actually a few giveaways. So any questions? I blew you away, that's what it is. You're all stunned. Dubai, the wellness city. Okay, well thank you. Thank you for your time, and if you want to get a report, first come, first serve.